Not me, she's the love guru.
I think the future of global peace lies into the cross-border marriages.
From Amna Media, this is KarāmaSūtra, chronicles from communities we've grown up with. I'm Vinita Bharadwaj.
And I'm Chirag Desai.
2020 is a lot of things. It's obviously going to be a year of many firsts, but also a year of a lot of milestones.
It is, for example, the year that will be remembered as the 10th anniversary of Sania Mirza and Shoaib Malik's wedding.
Finally, a couple now fondly referred to as Shoania, let's say Kabul hai. And yes,
For the uninitiated, Sania Mirza is one of India's most successful tennis exports. A former world number one in doubles, she has won 6 Grand Slam titles in her career, but is also known for being outspoken and calling out the double standards of South Asian society. She returned to the professional circuit in January, after more than 2 years away, during which time she also became a mother.
And Shoaib Malik, her husband, was a key Pakistani cricketer who debuted in 1999, and he also captained the national team from 2007 to 2009 before he retired in 2019.
Now, for those of you from India and Pakistan who might remember,
and for those of you who are not from either of those two countries and might not know,
their matrimonial union made national headlines in both countries. And for once, the reactions on both sides were strikingly similar in their perspective. When the news broke, it was largely jingoistic coverage that played up the nation's rivalry against the backdrop of a cross-border love story. And when the wedding date neared, it focused on the frivolous details ranging from the venues, Lahore in Pakistan and Hyderabad in India, in case you were wondering, to the dowry she received.
Being an Indo-Pak family or couple from a middle class is a completely different story rather than having a Sania Mirza, right?
Sania Mirza, Shoaib Malik.
These elite couples are they're from different moons and planets. The way I have traveled in India in roads and rickshaws and trains, I bet no other so-called elite cross-border couples have ever done it. Or the way Ehtesham has actually travelled or met people in Pakistan, Karachi. And I don't think Shoaib Malik never did it in India.
That's Amna Khaishgi, a Dubai-based Pakistani journalist and documentary maker. On Christmas Day 2002, she married Ehtesham Shahid, also a journalist, but from India.
And much before the hyper-connected WhatsApp days of today, all the way back in 2000 when dial-up was still a thing, Microsoft's MSN Messenger was the de facto chat platform of its time.
And it was over MSN that the couple connected, worked together, fell in love, proposed, and accepted, almost entirely over the internet.
There was a magazine called South Asia. She was the assistant editor of that magazine, and she wanted someone from Bombay to write a few business stories. I volunteered, and that is where things started. And but then that was the easiest part. Somewhere down the line, we decided to get married. This of course, she says, is always the most boring way in which you describe it.
You want me to the whole Bollywood story? Okay. Will you allow me to do that with all tan and music?
As long as the mirch masala is in control.
Yeah, I was working for a local political South Asian magazine as an assistant editor. Very young graduate from university. My editor asked me to find out lots of, journalist reporters across the region, because the plan was to start a very comprehensive grassroots reporting from South Asia. So there's a American Journalist Association, SAJA, South Asian Journalist. So I sent a note over there, and Ehtesham was also part of it. So he responded. At that time, he was working for Indian Express. So he said, I would love to contribute. And we were giving you decent money, Ehtesham. $30 or $50 per piece. It was a lot of money in late 90s.
Yeah, late 90s.
So yeah, he was rich because of me. Yeah. So he wrote, and the way he used to write even the silly email is such a heavy loaded Shakespearean language. I thought, Buddha uncle is about, 70, 80-year-old who using all the vocabulary dictionary in just 3 lines of email. And I'm a very bindas, a very careless person. So even if I'm going to WhatsApp you, then you'll find lots of commas and spelling errors, and I don't care. I feel like a message has to be conveyed regardless of what. So my attitude towards language is completely different as compared to his. So he used to write very loaded kind of a thing. I used to Google words at that time. Acha, okay. And I used to learn a lot. I said, okay, this uncle is perfectly suited for all kind of a writing I needed. So he started writing for us different. He used to do a lot of economic stories, right, or social stories, mainly about Bombay. In Pakistan, we have a very narrow window about how to understand India. So his stories and other stories were very kind of an eye-opener for us. Right. So for most of us in Pakistan, Bombay means Bollywood. Ironically, we are so close to each other, both the countries, but we have very limited access to each other countries. So our perspective about each other is mainly depend on our films and dramas or whatever the stories that we read on newspapers and everything. And most of them they're very biased and very subjective stories. So Ehtesham used to write a lot. During that time, I was, I think, in 24 or 25, I think 23, 24 something. So at that time, you have too much activism. And I thought, let me start. At that time, digital, I think, online media was completely, coming up. So I thought, let's start a webzine about South Asia. So I found a very, very nice name, peacemonger.com. And I thought, ye uncle to bada acha Angrezi likhta hai na, let's make him an editor. So why don't you send me the CV? I'm going to write a profile about you for the. And when he sent it, I was like, arey yaar, he's just 2 years older than me. Ye to bade maze ki.
On hindsight, I should have changed my date of birth to evade the scenario. But anyway.
We used to have a so-called official meeting / dating, whatever you call it, like between 8 to 9. We used to talk about what story has to go, like had to go on the website and everything. And he was actually my filter. I'm a very third gear kind of person, very unrealistic, aggressive person, very, adventurism, want to write everything about anything. So he used to be my filter. No, you have to be politically correct if you want to survive. It has to be sustainable, etc., etc. So at that time, we ran that online magazine for 2 years.
1.5
years. In between, he proposed me. He didn't even realize what he has done. I was in mid-20s, so I'm getting a typical, family kind of a pressure. You should, there were proposals, all kinds of uncles and jokers were coming at home and, for the rishta and everything. Then when he proposed, I said, ye to theek hai na. So I said, yes, karte hain shaadi. And until that time, we never met each other. It was all messenger. We used to have a once a month conversation, right?
Not too.
And even that was 2 or 3 minutes.
Close to the publishing cycle, we had to talk.
So,
but
otherwise, it was all, typing and emails and all those things. It was easier from his side, because it's, bahu to aani hai. There's nothing to lose it. But when I told my mom, I said, koi beoqoof bana raha hai. This is the kind of work you're doing at night or what kind of stuff, She had a completely nightmare and... it was not easy for me. In short, I belong to a very traditional, conservative Pathan family. There are lots of issues, but I said, "Karni hai to seeze karni, warna nahi karni." So, finally, his father was very kind enough. He wrote a very nice, pampered, typical formal letter to my father, with his passport-size photograph attached, with his CV, everything. This is my son. They decided, so we should, respect their wishes and let them get married, etc. So that thing literally, flattered my father. He said, it's a good family. That's why the whole family. So he said yes.
Now, Indo-Pak love stories tend to attract a lot of attention on both sides of the border because of the fraught history both countries share. In August 1947, when after nearly 300 years in the Indian subcontinent, the British finally left, Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan were created. One of the greatest migrations in human history began as millions of Muslims made their way to West and East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh, and millions of Hindus and Sikhs in the opposite direction. Many also never made it. Although 70 years have passed, the rivalry has known to resurface. Militarily, 3 wars have been fought. Politically, lots of nationalist rhetoric on both sides. On the cricket field, 11 World Cup meetings, and of course, when there's a cross-border love story. The question they're often asked being, couldn't you find someone in your own country?
He had no options over there in India, I suppose so.
Yeah, someone asked me.
I don't think Bihar's that starved, to be fair.
Someone asked me that question, कि आपको इंडिया में कोई नहीं मिला? मैंने कहा उस वक्त नहीं मिला. So that was, probably I hadn't met anyone interesting enough in India, and same went for her. So we were at the right place at the right time in that way. And since we knew each other professionally, it was kind of easy for us to take that decision. The moment we thought, okay, we can also get married. So I wouldn't call it an afterthought, but it definitely came after we had a lot of professional engagement already.
As with most relationships, falling in love is often the easy part. But in the case of mixed nationality relationships, the logistics of visiting each other's countries then gives the relationship a whole other dimension.
So, like in our society, the groom has to come to get the bride, not the bride will go.
Yeah, that meant only 4 of us could go. Including myself. So me, my sister, and my parents. No, I was the 5th one. My uncle was there, so 4 plus 1. So we went to 5, and when we came back, we were 5.
And so my brother, like, we never met each other. My family never met these people. So we have his passport size photograph like in our kitty. So I gave it to my younger brother and said, please make sure you bring the same guy. I don't want to marry to an alien. So my brother, when he went to the airport, he saw the photograph. He checked Ehtesham, it should be the same people. Then I said, please check the photograph, the passport copies as well. They should be the right people, because they were the only people who came all the way from Dubai. It was a travel ban at that time, right?
Yeah, we traveled via Dubai. There were no direct flights even then.
So it's from Delhi to Dubai, Dubai to Karachi. Till date, he keeps teasing me. I have to spend another 1.5 lakh on the tickets.
Yeah.
Visiting India for Pakistanis and visiting Pakistan for Indians can be challenging, to put it mildly. The paperwork is plenty, and there's always the discretion of the officers, compounded by the unpredictable relationship between the nations. Both nationalities can obtain a visitor's visa to meet relatives or friends for a period not exceeding 6 months, with a few restrictions.
Almost every year, once every year is what we try to. Yes, to just...
No.
I've not been to Pakistan as many times as she has been to India, of course. But then that is because my family is in India.
I don't have a family, no? I don't have a family in Pakistan. But he has a family in India, okay. Twice a year, at least once a year, we try to go back to, yes.
But is it easy for you to go, visa-wise?
Luckily, yes. So far, I've got the multiple entry visa. So it's about 2-year multiple entry visa. And I visit Bihar and Delhi. That's to my...
You've been to Jaipur, you've been to Bombay, you've been to Calcutta, you've been to few more cities.
No. Hello, Banaras.
Yes.
Banaras, just because your cousin were getting married, so I had to go over there, and I had to live in that lousy hotel when the bathroom was not working. Okay. And we went to Jaipur. Yeah, that was the only treat you gave me in India.
Yes.
And always we are going to Delhi.
Yes.
And
Calcutta.
That's it. Calcutta again. Come on.
Bombay
We had to
even last year we went to Bombay.
That was...
Yeah, but then I haven't traveled a lot of India as well. And when you're working here, you get a week 10 days off, and then you have an old father sitting in your Bihar home, so he expects you to come home. And Delhi, you spend a few days meeting up with friends and family. I've worked there, so I have a lot of people. She's got more relatives in Delhi than I have. So my Biharis get outnumbered compared to Pathans from Khurja who live and work in Delhi. So we have to find time for all of them. So by the time you do that, you have just about 4.
I have a complete power show in Delhi. So I keep harassing him. So that's kind of, so Delhi is home for me.
We've talked a lot about Pathans and Biharis. So in terms of idiosyncrasies, how would you describe Pathans and how would you describe Biharis?
Pathans are very forthright, cute. And
even the men?
Even the men. Oh, men are cuter than women, I guess.
Isn't Shah Rukh Khan a Pathan?
He is a Pathan, yes. I mean, of a Pathan descent. Yes, so definitely. But they have a very, very, what you call formed value system. And you've got to understand them in that context. So I have a lot of respect for people who go by their value system, and then they have their own. For instance, hospitality is something. So if they'll not take no for an answer. So if you are booked for lunch and dinner, they'll make sure you come for breakfast. So that's how the Pathan hospitality works. But there are lots of great things about them. Yes, there are idiosyncrasies, but they are everywhere. So I would rather focus on the positives. Now say some good things about Biharis, please.
Yeah, okay. They're very... I think that their strength is their simplicity. They're very rooted. That's the best part. So they're very rooted, they're very simple, genuine people. See, for me, it was not just about marrying in India, it was also marrying a very rural person. I'm a very urban person. So a person who has strong roots from Gaon, and it's give me a completely different take about the whole, my perspective of my world. So yeah, so whatever I've seen India or Bihar through Ehtesham's reference or from his eyes, I found them, they're very rooted and they're very genuine people. The only thing I hate about them, they're very conjuice. They don't spend money. So that's the only thing I keep complaining about.
They don't spend money on useless things.
So our wife is a useless thing, by the way. So yeah, so that's a part of my script, because in Pakistan, if you're a newlywed bride, you're expecting lots of gifts from, and I didn't got a single gift from in Bihar. Can you imagine?
The Amna Ehtesham romance, or not romance, depending on which one of them you talk to, clearly has enough to work into a script. And that's what the two prolific writers did. More on that after the break. Hey, we have a quick message from Aleph Collective, a caravanserai for South Asia and the Muslim world.
Aleph Collective and its storytelling initiative Kissa Go will be presenting a travelling festival that will mark its inaugural edition in Dubai in 2020. The festival will cover everything from art to ecology and tech to theatre, along with film, food, music and literature.
The team is reaching out to you, the community, to join them and become a part of the festival. You can show your support and see yourself represented by reaching out on Instagram at Aleph Collective Official and Kissa Go Official. That's QISSAGO Official.
Welcome back. You're listening to KarāmaSūtra, Chronicles from Communities We've Grown Up With. I'm Chirag Desai.
And I'm Vinita Bharadwaj. Before we return to the story, we have a small favour to ask. If you're enjoying the show, we would really appreciate it if you could please give us a rating and take a couple of minutes to post a review. It helps us a lot as more people discover the show, which ultimately drives our purpose to bring you more of these beautiful stories.
And now, back to the episode.
Today we're looking at love through a slightly different lens, as we met Amna Khaishgi and Ehtesham Shahid, an Indo-Pakistani couple who have been married for 17 years and live in Dubai.
So that's a part of my script, because in Pakistan, if you're a newlywed bride, you're expecting lots of gifts from, and I didn't got a single gift from in Bihar. Can you imagine?
You know what happened? So she put that line in the play.
Mia, Bivi or Vaga, scripted by the two, is the story of an Indian husband from a small town in Bihar and his Pathan wife, who share their real-life experiences through letters. Vaga, the town on the border of India and Pakistan, is anthropomorphized as the third titular character in the play.
Now, Mia Bibi or Vaga came up because of our conversation with a lot of common friends, from Bengalis to Malayalis to Kannadigas, Gujaratis and Marathis. All of them used to gather. We used to recite a lot of pieces of poetry and literature that got us all interested. And then we decided, in fact, we kind of figured out that this dying tradition of letter writing, which is what existed when we were all kids, has suddenly disappeared because of the 2 decades of digital onslaught that has happened. And most of us are part of that onslaught. So we thought it's important that we revive this tradition of letter writing, because it was a very unique emotional journey you go through if you are living in a hostel, writing to your parents, if you're writing to your beloved and stuff like that. तो वहाँ से शुरुआत हुई, and then we realized that us being Indian and Pakistani provides a very interesting background. So we thought Mia from India and Bibi from Pakistan, and let's create a character called Vaga, which is the border dividing India and Pakistan. So we ended up doing this play, which was basically kept India and Pakistan in the background, but it was all about how the distinguishing letters from our lives have kind of robbed us from a means of communication that existed just a couple of generations ago. And then one thing led to another. We just got together a group of friends and we decided to perform. And then we thought, okay, so we'll write the script, someone else will perform. But we got a director who was fantastic, and she said, no, since it's the stories of your lives, you guys should perform yourself. My wife was very interested in becoming Aishwarya Rai of the stage, but I was very reluctant to begin with because I wasn't sure why would anybody be interested in letters from our lives.
Acting like that and trying to make a love story work, I think would have been a challenge for actors. I think that really did come across as a genuine relationship because it was them. I don't think anybody could have played.
That's Zainab Ahmed, a Dubai resident and a member of the audience when the play was at the Junction in Dubai.
So the background is that I think Amna was pitching some work to my husband at his workplace, and that's how he sort of came to know of her. And then they mentioned that they were going to be in a play. I sort of got roped into it because he had to do this for work, so he had to go. And I was like, oh, it's going to be another one of those India-Pakistan stories where, you know, they're big enemies and a lot of Bollywood drama. And I just loved the fact that it was such a nuanced, sensitive love story. You know, it wasn't about just the politics of it. It was real people. I loved the idea of letter writing. It was just a sweet story. I mean, I really did enjoy watching that quite a bit.
The important bit of the journey of that journey was that if you read out letters that even belongs to your very personal domain, and if you read out, say, half a dozen letters to a group of friends, it's guaranteed that 2 to 3 of those letters will strike a chord at the person listening to them, because some of the core emotions remain the same. We could make people laugh and we could make people cry. And then we realized that there is this idea of communicating through letters was such a unique form of communication that we have just allowed to drift away from our lives, and we should bring it back. So it was worth the exercise, and this post box always reminds us. And we've been doing a lot of workshops, going to labor camps, letting people write and express themselves. And it's really, really enticing to see people express themselves when they see the form of pen and paper written. So we did 3 shows at the Junction Al Sarkal Avenue, and then again we did another 3-4 shows in October, and then in 2018 January we traveled to Delhi to perform at the India Habitat Center, 3 shows there. And then we traveled to Karachi to perform at a festival called National Academy of Performing Arts. We did another 3-4 shows there. So it's been quite a journey. We haven't been able to do as frequently as we would like to, for the simple reason that we are all working in different fields, and getting an 8 to 10 member team together to stay away from work for about a week, 10 days, and prepare and rehearse and all that is not that easy. So, but then we are probably trying to do as many of these shows as possible in going forward as well.
Dubai has unwittingly emerged as a safe haven for cross-border couples. There are no actual estimates for the number of Indo-Pakistani families in the emirate, but it is where Sania Mirza and Shoaib Malik, for example, moved to soon after their wedding, and also where Amna and Ehtesham have lived since 2003. Their living room has 2 distinct photographs from both their childhoods. Their parents are seated in a similar manner. Each family has 3 children. Each parent has a child close to them, with the middle ones closer to the mothers. And in each photograph, 2 out of the 3 children in the family are dressed in identical clothes. One photograph is in black and white, and the other is in colour. They could be families from the same country, same city, same village.
We actually have dedicated one of our letters in our theatre. It's all about my grandmother's memory, my dadi's memory. I was very close to my dadi, my grandmother. In a sense, you know, I was the only child who can actually, she was illiterate, she cannot, you know, she was not able to write letters and everything. I used to write letters on her behalf to her relatives back in India, in Khurja. And she was extremely obsessed with her native town, Khurja. I think when my dada decided to migrate, being a patriarchal society, the woman would not take into consideration of a decision. She never wanted to come to Pakistan because all her friends, family, everybody were there. So my dadi was very unhappy, and she used to have a hangover. She always assumed that one day everybody is going back to Khurja. And we used to have a car in Karachi. We used to say it's a palki. it's a motor wali palki, that kind of she had a major hangovers. And because I used to write letters on her behalf to her relatives back in India, so I have that kind of a connection. I knew family. For me, those people were ghost relatives. So I was writing a letter to Safdar, her nephew, her niece Rashida, her brothers, and I used to know all the secrets of the family politics, what's happening over there. Very nice memories and very, bitter memories both. So I used to write every week almost 10 or 12 letters on my dadi's behalf to all her relatives, literally. In that sense, I was connected to India virtually or philosophically, but not physically. So when I got married and I went to India for the first time, and I've got a visa for Khurja as well, so we went to, to my ancestor place. And it was such an emotional moment for us, because actually I was visiting all those lanes and houses that I used to talk about during my letters. Those characters of the letters have become a reality. I was able to see Safdar, Rashida, her brother, and everything. So that was my connection. I don't know, that was, I think, in the destiny. And 4 years back, isn't it? 4 years back, I took my father at the age of 85 to India for the first time after partition. He never went back, and the way when he visited his hometown where he was born and raised up to the age of 17. And my father is a very strong, very introvert with no emotions, who really smiled kind of a person. The way he used to cry after, to see his father Haveli or visiting his school, such an emotional thing. And seeing my father at the age of 85, crying like a child, looking at all the buildings and relating all the, incident and everything. And at that time, I know my father was never happy with my decision, but at that day he said that, Amna, now I've realized why Allah has decided you to get married to an Indian.
Amna and Ehtesham quibble, as is expected of most married couples who've stayed together as long as they have. However, in that most contentious of issues, there seems to be relative harmony.
The cricket match, we have a very simple formula. If you lose, you cook. So she ends up cooking most of the time.
Most recently,
the good thing is she has zero interest in cricket, and I watch cricket all the time. So
I just asked him, do I have to cook it or you are going to cook it? He said, you have to cook it. Okay, fine. Let's go. So we have a very straight thing. Yeah.
I win, you cook.
But one of our friends, he gave us a very great idea. He said, all the Indo-Pak matches, you guys should bet on it. Because end of the day, the money is going to come in the house. Whoever wins and whoever loses, that's a good idea.
So I guess this brings us to the giant elephant in the studio.
Love? It's a little hard to escape, given that it is February. We hear a story like Amna and Ehtesham's, which in a way was online dating for its time. And yet, 17 years later, here they are, still in love and still together.
Which is interesting given how the dating culture of the present day is so heavily reliant on the internet. And yet, people are finding it harder and harder to develop real, meaningful connections.
So what's their take on love?
Not me, she's the love guru.
Honestly, I think the future of global peace lies into the cross-border marriages, whether it's an Indian Pakistani, Indian Chinese, Indian Ethiopians, Pakistani
Chinese,
Pakistani Chinese. Okay. I think people has to come out. I feel sad when marriage is a very spiritual relationship for me. It has to be, but the moment people start making a very calculated decision, I think you're completely coming out of the ethos of marriage and relationship. So I love those people who usually take the blind decision when it comes to marriages.
She was asking about love, not marriage. They're two different things.
Bindas. I didn't know how much he was earning. He didn't know how much I was earning. He didn't know about, and literally it was, by all definition, it was completely a blind arranged marriage in all that sense. My upbringing, we are literally two different value system. See, but when people talk about the Indo-Pak relation, I honestly laugh over them because we are the direct stakeholders. The future of both the country's relationship, politically, socially, economically, literally, people like us are the direct stakeholders. But I feel we are the best ambassadors in both the countries as well. I feel the way I conduct myself in India is actually my role as an ambassador of my country is much more stronger and influential as compared to any tankha lene wala diplomat. And same goes to him. Like, I remember the first time he visited in Pakistan, people were so curious to know. Like, he said, like, we are as normal as any other Indian. So people like us, basically, we are the reality check in our respective societies. There's such an irony that both the countries are so close by, we have no idea how we live. But, in India and Pakistan, the only difference I see on the roads is the language, Otherwise, the whole mindset, I gave my first ever bribe of my life in Bombay. So, like, kitna 100 rupees diya tha na? 100 rupees diye. So, yeah, so these things, if the mindset is the same, the mentality is the same, so I feel very connected. India is, for me, Delhi is like Karachi.
This episode of KarāmaSūtra was hosted by me, Vinita, Bharadwaj, and produced by me and Chirag Desai, who also edits the show, with support from Abhishek Venkatasubramanian, Sukayna Kazmi, and Zainab Ujjaini. Special thanks, of course, to Amna, Khaishgi and Ehtesham Shahid for sharing their story with us.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. You can connect with us on Instagram at karama.sutra, that's KARAMA.SUTRA, and listen to all of our episodes for free in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Angami, or wherever you like to listen. KarāmaSūtra is part of the Amaya Media Podcast Network. You can find out more at amaya.media.
We'll be back on the 8th of March. Until then, have a great month.